Hi, everybody. It's Denise, and I'm here to talk about Uranus entering Gemini, and that is happening very soon on April 26th, and Uranus will enter Gemini at 0 degrees. And so that's going to be at 1:51 p.m. here on the West Coast. It'll be at 7:51 p.m. or 7:51 Universal Time. Okay, so check for your time around the world. So let's have a look at this, and let's pull up the pen. Where is my pen here? And here it is. Okay, so Aries, let's look for you. And so Aries, let's talk about what Uranus really is, right? And its effect or its impact, because it is going to make a huge impact in everybody's life, all right? So this is going to be for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Okay, so Aries, here you are and you are right here. Okay. So when we look at this, we can say that it's on the ascendant. And I mean, for you, if I put you on the ascendant, it's just showing here, um, the houses that are in a row here, basically. And that's what we're doing here today. We're talking about Uranus is going to be in your third house, right? And so, but let's talk first about Uranus' stay in Gemini, which is going to last until May of 2033. And that's going to include a brief stay as it moves into Cancer and then back into Gemini to finish its transit. So Uranus is a lightning bolt. It's electric, it's sudden change, it's innovation, liberation, and much more. So when Uranus can, affect us, come into our lives, basically it's usually without any warning, and that can happen, right? Anything sudden. So Uranus is related to accidents. It can be spiritual breakthroughs. Bam, it just kind of came to me. And Uranus disrupts and liberates us, but it leaves us permanently changed. And Uranus wants to remove outdated structures and even outdated beliefs. So Uranus calls for new methods of communication, new technological advances, and breakthroughs and breakaways. We're going to break away from certain things in our lives. That's just how it will, for many of us, for most of us, all right? And so Uranus is going to be in Gemini, the planet of communication, ideas, goals, and skills. And this is also Gemini, also covers the familiar, siblings, extended family, and early childhood. And that is the third house, right? That Gemini so represents, all right, in the natural chart. Now, these are just some of the themes that will be impacted or changed really, and that Gemini, that Uranus will be really doing. And of course, this is going to depend on what house Uranus falls into in your own chart, right? In your own natal chart. So Gemini is the air element. It's mutable and it's masculine. So you can imagine Uranus coming into a mutable, very kind of moldable and changeable, and a masculine sign, and it is air energy. So it's a big deal. It really is. And so we could see change in air travel, wind technology, aeronautics, computer technology, and AI. Will likely enjoy, will likely aeronautics is air travel, yeah. And so we'll likely enjoy new inventions and faster and more efficient electronics. And there can also be advance with space technology as well. There definitely could be. The way we communicate with others, especially those who live at a distance, that could change and honestly improve and upgrade, right? Innovate, right? The method to exchange ideas will see upgrades and collective paradigms will shift for sure because Uranus stays for 7 years. So sometimes 7.5. But the thing about Uranus is that it's it wants everything to get better. It wants to change. And sometimes it brings change by way of disruption or instability. And that is usually how Uranus behaves, really. So our paradigms, the way we think, especially in Gemini, it's going to change, right, for the collective. Now, and personally as well, depending on where Uranus is in our own chart, right? And Uranus will encourage independence and freedom to break away from conventional or traditional limitations, right? Uranus doesn't want any limitations. And yeah, the last time Uranus was in Gemini was in Especially except for last year, but the last time it was in Gemini last year for a brief stay. But um, Gemini, for its real transit or its, which is a 7 year transit, 7.5 year transit. The last time Uranus was in Gemini was in 1941 to 1949. And Uranus has a sudden and unexpected quality, as I have been saying. And so on December 7th, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on Pearl Harbor in Hawaii in the United States. So, that makes us wonder what Uranus is going to be up to for the next 7 years, right? So let's go ahead and talk about Aries because this is your particular reading. And the next 7 years will bring a lot of change in how you communicate and how you process. Here's Uranus for you, Aries. All right. So, we start with your house. We're in the third house over here where Uranus is, and it is conjoined with as it enters Gemini, it makes a conjunction with uh, the benefic Venus, right? So Venus is supporting. Venus is the second benefic to Jupiter, really, and it is there to provide support. Um, and we'll talk about that a little bit here, but you're likely to maybe you will develop new skills as well. The third house is the house of skills and goals based on you wanting to improve your life. Your ideas will be highly innovative. You could have a lot of spiritual breakthroughs, right? The third house is also about ideas. So the third house is the house of communication, anything cerebral, really. Um, yeah, it's about learning. It is study and what we like to talk about. That is the third house. It's also the house, as I mentioned, plans and goals and our willpower. It's also represents siblings, early childhood, and also extended family, which are, usually part of extended family, but our early childhood rather. It's also the familiar. Gemini is the third house is about what we do all the time, kind of on autopilot. That is the familiar, or what we know about that is very familiar. It is about the neighborhood and the local community because that is familiar as well. So, whatever has been very familiar for you, Aries, is going to change. Yeah, you won't be so much into the familiar. No, in other words, you'll want like more future oriented or, okay, I already got that, or, the familiar sometimes it can be connected to the past, right? So you're doing something great here, or you're going to be during the next 7 years, Aries, for sure. All right. And so your ideas could be highly innovative and even possibly futuristic, but they will be. And, Uranus it is connected to the future. And why do I say that? Because it is about innovation and improving and breaking away. So now we want to, move more into the future, right? And your ideas they're probably most likely unconventional and rooted in your own independence and right and what you want for yourself. All right. Now we have the trine from Uranus makes a trine to Pluto, and Pluto's an Aquarius, and that is another air. This is an air trine. And here is the trine right here. Yeah, I was going to, kind of take some of this out of here so you could see it a little easier, but it is pretty visible, right? Here's the trine right here, Aries, and from Uranus down to Pluto. And so Pluto is in your 11th house of the future, right? This is also the house of friends and, social groups. You're like your friends, you might not, be, eye to eye or feel in alignment with, the friends that you have now or the people that you identify with, the social groups. That could all change, right? And, interesting how your communication can change as well, of course, or your style. Um, right, because of Uranus is in your third house. And the third house is a very social place. So Gemini is a social sign, of course, when it's about communication. But you're going to like this is very futuristic as well. This is also your house where Pluto sits here. This is also your house of gains, usually from the 10th house of career. So you could be doing something to, to really kind of improve your income or your career, you definitely could be doing something there. All right. And so we also have, yeah, Pluto in the 11th, and Pluto is transformation. So, right? Yeah. Okay. So something is going to be changing for you for sure. All right. You could become more interested in social change, Aries. That could be the case as well. And Uranus is also sextiling Neptune in your sign, right? So here we have Neptune showing up right here, kind of the I don't know, King Neptune's pitchfork, if you will. It's really what it represents. Yeah. And so I'm sure there's a little bit more to that archetype or that myth, right, about Neptune. But Neptune is there sextiling, excuse me, Uranus is sextiling Neptune. So this is coming really from Uranus, but what it is that you could really kind of, maybe you're going to get spiritual. You could become spiritual over the next 7 years, right? These can be spiritual breakthroughs. They can, you could, right? But the sextile always involves you engaging in something. So if you're just kind of, sitting there, like, not doing anything, like some people say they want to go meet somebody, or, but they never go anywhere, or they never, they don't join any social activities. So how can you meet anybody? Well, you can use social media, you can. But if you're not doing that, right, then you're not going to meet anybody. So my point about this is that there's a little bit of engagement that will be called upon, or called for, rather, okay? Neptune can make you a little sensitive about some type of change as well. But this could be opening up, new alternative ways of believing in yourself, possibly new alternative ways of healing. Neptune is connected to healing, and your visions, and just how you live in general, right? Maybe you are going to be more inclined to be believing in your visions. All right. All right. So, because Neptune is also about our dreams. Yeah, it is. It's a very idealistic, it's about, wow, I can have this. It's very idealistic, or I want that, or things like that. Um, but it is also of compassion and believing in these dreams, right? Yeah, and believing. It's also creative. Yeah. And so, Uranus moving into your third house of ideas, and the mind, you could really be enjoying creative ideas. Yeah, innovative and creative ideas. All right. So, and then we also have Mars, and Mars is your ruler. This is your ruling planet, right? It also rules, Mars also rules Scorpio down here, and so which is your eighth house of transformation. So we can see that there's a lot of transformation for you, especially with Pluto in your, 11th house of the future, right? So now we have Mars, natal Mars, and it is trining. We can see it right here. Here's Black Moon Lilith, and I will draw a little circle here. And so here's Mars, right? Trining this Black Moon Lilith. And so what it is really is that, this here, Aries, is in your ninth house of higher purpose and growth and expansion. This is where we want to, in essence, make our dreams come true. We want to evolve. That's the ninth house, is really the house of evolution, higher purpose and expansion and things like that. All right. It is also the house of God and religion. So, maybe there's something, maybe you will be, possibly becoming more religious. That's going to depend on your own natal chart, right? Yeah, we can't, of course, right? But here we have Lilith and Mars. Your Mars is making a trine here to Lilith. So there's something about your philosophy, or the kind of, um, your vision, maybe your vision, your higher purpose, where you are kind of breaking away from something here. This is raw power, and you want to break free from maybe what people in society have told you is right, right? I have my own philosophy. This is your kind of your you know although Aries is not necessarily huge on philosophy, because Aries wants to take action. Aries doesn't usually it's not really so much about thinking first. It's more about you may, as Uranus possibly enters this, your third house, but depending on your own chart. But the archetype really is Aries wants to move. It wants to conquer. It wants to create something. It wants to take action. That's what it is. It's courage and drive. And so here, though, there's something that you are like you're just kind of breaking away from something and becoming more independent and strong. And you're like, there's no apologies here to anybody. Like whatever your philosophy is or your vision or how you feel like you are evolving um, is like, and your wisdom too, the ninth house of the house of wisdom. You're not apologizing for any wisdom that you've really gained, right? Because it's going to change you in some degree, especially with Uranus moving into your social and your very cerebral house, right? Um, yeah, and so we also have Mars, Mercury, and Mars both. So Mercury is the ruler of Uranus because Uranus is moving into Gemini, right? So Mercury is ruling your third house of communication, and also uh, your sixth house of daily practical affairs. Look at that. So that is in Virgo. So there may be something about your daily life though, right? Or your health or your work that also will be somewhat affected, right? Um, yeah, let me turn this pen off here. And so we have the south node here, and that is squaring Venus. Really interesting there. But let's go back to, in just a moment, we can always go back to that. Um, yeah, let me just see here if this is actually making, I don't think it is the Venus that is making the square here. Um, it is actually. I beg your pardon. Okay, so we'll go back to Venus here, and Venus is here, and Venus in your third house, right? Supporting Uranus. So maybe it's possible the food you eat here will change, possibly because Venus does represent our food. It represents everything earthly and that is of kind of material pleasure, right? I mean, food is not really material, but what is pleasure? Like the good life. So you could change your also Aries, you could change your style of like the person you're attracted to, right? Venus rules love. You might not be they might be more unconventional types. That can happen right there, right? So we have Venus squaring the nodes as well. And this can also be Uranus pulls you into back to Venus, Uranus in your third house of Venus. You might be wanting to earn more money as well because Venus is associated with our money. And so you may be wanting to earn more money. That could be the case here, right? Because this is the house. The third house is also the house of sales. And there is business involved with the third house, definitely, because it's connected to communication and documents and goals and right things like that. So the sixth house here for you is the house of work and health and your daily routine. Something like that will change in the over the next 7 years, right? You could be saying everybody's, but not necessarily because, everybody will change maybe a job or something like that. But your whole perspective, when Uranus comes in, it changes our perspective because there's a need for some type of freedom or independence. So we're thinking differently, right? And that's what's going to be happening for you over the next 7 years, most likely here. All right. And why do I say most likely? Because I don't have your chart in front of me. Um, for those of you watching, right? And so here we have, let me see here. We also have Uranus. Um, sorry, getting back to Venus, I beg your pardon. We have Venus making these squares to the nodes, right? Let me see what Uranus is doing. I don't feel like Uranus is squaring the nodes. No, it's not. See? So we do have Venus doing that, and let's go back to Venus here. Venus is making a square to the nodes. And we see it right here. And this node, the north node, is your path. It is like what you really kind of, your higher path, so to speak. It can be fate and destiny, but it is really, it can also be a group of people that sometimes that we are trying to kind of, we identify ourselves with. But the North Node is more of your path and your higher purpose, kind of like Jupiter a little bit. But here we have the North Node, and that is showing up in your 12th house of endings. So Venus here, there's something that's definitely going to be ending for you, and it could be related to love, or, when we see Venus doing that, love or your finances. Venus is also how we take care of ourselves, our self-worth and our well-being. So there could be something that changes along those lines, because this square, Aries, is a challenge for you. These squares here they're challenging in some way to take some type of action, change something. And so here we have Uranus squaring the South Node, where in your sixth house of work, health and wellness, and daily routines, or your lifestyle, your practical daily affairs, something's changing here. And this is the ruler. Excuse me, Mercury is the ruler of your sixth house, as it is ruling Gemini as well, your third house. So something's definitely going to change. And also, I kind of skipped over this, but getting back to Mercury, right? We were still kind of here. We are in the still talking about Mercury right now. Mercury, it is ruling Uranus here and your sixth house, like we just said. This doesn't want. And so here we have Mercury in your first house. So you are definitely thinking about change yourself, because Mercury is here in a conjoined together with your Mars, right? Your will to act. So in your house of self. So there's definitely going to be changes here for you. And yeah, and so there you go. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for joining me here. If you'd like a reading with me, check out the description box below. And take care, Aries, and we will see you in the next video.